Howdy folks, just wanted to sort of walk you through what an urban hive setup looks like. So say you're interested in keeping urban bees. That's a really great thing you can do for pollinators, but if you're going to be doing that, you want to take into account quite a few things. Urban beekeeping can be quite expensive. It's not necessarily super affordable for everyone, even though the city has recently modified their policy to make urban beekeeping permits more affordable. There's still a lot of equipment that you need to build up and accumulate in order to keep a beehive. So here we are in one of our citizens of Appleton gardens, and we can see that the garden space has a lot of lovely vegetables going on right now. We also have a lot of beautiful flowers that are meant to provide forage for the bees. And what we see is that this particular citizen has 4 different hives set up. One here, 2, 3, and 4. Now this is a pretty standard and pretty ordinary normal hive setup, and I can walk you through what that looks like as well. Our normal hive setup, going from the bottom up, should never be directly on the ground. In fact, you want to try and get it as level as possible and go ahead and just have it off the ground. Ideally, it'd be even higher up than what it currently is. Right now it's just sitting on a couple of cinder blocks, but I've seen setups that go 18, 24 inches high off the ground. Then here we have our entrance. The entrance here, as you can see, bees are very mild. I'm not wearing any of my protective gear at the moment. They're not very aggressive. They're just coming in and out and doing their thing. So here's our entrance with a screen bottom, which allows us to pull out the screen and do. So this is a lot of bee poop. It's called frass. It's pretty much just really dried up pollen. But every once in a while, I like to take a look in here and see if I see pests that might be attacking our bees. Things like the mites, beetles, or moth larvae. So this is a good indicator of how your bees are doing. And it's mostly just dried pollen. Once it's all cleaned off, you can just take it off your garden and slide that back in. Now let's talk about these boxes. The boxes are typically divided up into brood chambers and honey supers. The bottom one is called a deep brood chamber. And if you notice that, if you compare the bottom width to the next one up, the bottom brood chamber is typically larger. This is where the queen bee is usually going to hang out, and this is where she's going to be laying her brood to keep the colony going. So on average, honeybee will live between 20 and 25 days, okay? And during that period, it'll go from an emerged adult and play different roles in different parts of the hive. Next comes another brood chamber. The second brood chamber here is usually used to store honey that the brood will consume, or pollen that the brood will consume, as well as additional brood. If we keep working our way up, typically there is a reducer here, or a queen excluder, that prevents the queen from going into these higher honey supers and laying eggs in there, meaning that all that's going to be in here in these 2 top supers is going to be our honey production. So this is where we're going to be drawing our honey from. From there on out, it's just a quick peek. We'll take a quick peek here. And here is our regular hive. I've added this little slit here for a little bit extra ventilation, but this is where our bees are going to be working and generally producing honey. Okay. So that's sort of what the backyard bee setup looks like. And as you can see, there's 4 different setups here. When one of these is totally full, one more look in here, we'll see that there are 10 individual frames inside of each honey super. Each one of these frames will weigh between 3 and 4 pounds when fully packed with honey. And so if you do the math there, that's 3 to 4, that's about 30 to 40 pounds of honey in each one of these top boxes, times as many supers as you put on. So let's say all 4 of them were fully loaded. That's, what is that, 8 different boxes at 40 pounds a piece. We're talking quite a bit of honey can potentially be produced in a simple backyard setup. Now, this is the first year that this honey setup is set up here, so we're gonna basically spend our first year trying to get them adjusted to this area and making sure that our colony survives over the winter. That's a very big thing that you can do as an urban beekeeper, is just making sure that your mite counts are down, that you are checking frequently for the health of your colony, and that you're allowing, making sure that any males that emerge from your hive are of good genetic quality so that the local hive population can be sustained. Other things you can do for your backyard honeybees is plant forage for them. Even though a honeybee can forage for up to 5 miles away from home, you know, it's always a nice idea to give them a few extra flowers. Now remember, some of the ecosystem services that these bugs are going to provide for you, or that these little bees are going to be providing for you, is they're going to be pollinating your vegetable garden. So here, this person's vegetable garden is right next to their beehive. And if we look in here, all of these flowers, male and female flowers, are going to be visited by the bees. And that's what's going to allow that pollination ecosystem service to take place. So remember that if you are interested in backyard beekeeping, this is a great thing you can do for our local community. Cities like Appleton have recently changed their regulations to make it more affordable and more accessible, but you're still going to have to chip in quite a bit to get yourself the appropriate tools, things that are like protective equipment, which you really only need if you're digging into the hive, or surveying tools like this hive tool that lets us separate out frames. Not to mention all of the supers, the frames. It all quickly starts to add up. But don't be discouraged by this. There are plenty of really useful supportive businesses around the community that are really willing to help you. One last thing that I want to mention is that if you do decide to set up a backyard hive, probably the most important thing you want to do is find yourself a good mentor, somebody that's going to be able to walk you through how to properly inspect a hive, how to set them up, how to take them from a nucleus to a hive, how to rear out queens or prevent swarming. All of those are things that you're going to be learning. This is only my second year beekeeping, so I'm still on the upward trajectory here, learning on how to take care of backyard bees. But every day and every time I go back out here, it's a really great learning opportunity. So I hope you're not too discouraged, but at the same time, I hope you try to explore this potential and very rewarding hobby. Thank you all.